Ravi was an ordinary young man who liked to take long walks at night. He lived on the edge of a small town, where the streetlights ended and the open fields began. His friends often asked him why he wasted time walking alone when he could sit at home with a screen in front of him. Ravi always smiled and said he enjoyed the quiet. He felt that the world spoke in whispers at night, and he liked to listen. One evening, the moon was bright and the air smelled of rain. Ravi walked along the narrow dirt road that cut across the fields. He kicked small stones and looked at the sky full of stars. Then he saw something unusual. At first, it looked like a shooting star, but instead of vanishing, it grew brighter and fell lower. Ravi stopped, his heart beating faster. The light did not fade. It came down with a strange humming sound and landed in the field ahead of him. Ravi hesitated, but curiosity pulled him forward. He ran across the grass until he reached the spot. A small craft rested there. It was round, silver, and glowing faintly. Smoke rose from its side as if it had been damaged. A door slid open and a figure stumbled out. Ravi's eyes widened. It was not human. The figure was short and thin, with gray-green skin and large eyes that glowed in the moonlight. The being wore a long robe and held its arms out as if asking for help. Ravi's first thought was to run, but then he saw something that changed his mind. The alien was old. Its back was bent and its steps were weak. It looked more like someone's grandmother than a monster from space. The alien collapsed on the ground with a soft cry. Ravi rushed forward without thinking. He knelt beside her. Yes, it was a her, though her face was different from any face he had seen before. Wrinkles lined her skin and her eyes showed both fear and kindness. She tried to speak, but her voice was faint, filled with sounds Ravi did not understand. "Don't worry," Ravi said gently, though he knew she could not understand his words. "I'll help you." He looked around. No one else was there. The field was empty, the road silent. He realized the responsibility was his alone. With effort, he lifted the alien grandmother. She was lighter than he expected. He carried her to the shade of a tree and set her down carefully. Her breathing was uneven. Ravi pulled out his bottle of water and held it to her lips. She drank slowly, her hands trembling. Then she placed one hand on Ravi's arm and looked into his eyes. For a moment, Ravi felt a strange warmth inside, as if her touch carried both gratitude and hope. The craft behind them gave a sharp spark. Ravi turned to see more smoke rising. It looked like it could explode. He realized he had to move her farther away. Once again, he lifted her, though his arms ached, and carried her across the field until they were safe. The old alien tried to speak again. This time, Ravi thought he understood a single word. It sounded like gentle. Her voice was weak but clear enough. She seemed to be asking him to be gentle with her, as if she feared being handled roughly. Ravi nodded. "I will be gentle. Don't worry." He sat beside her, unsure of what to do next. The stars above seemed brighter now, as if watching. Ravi wondered if others of her kind were searching for her. He wondered if he had just stepped into the kind of story people only read about in books. Minutes passed. The alien grandmother slowly regained some strength. She pointed weakly to the sky, then back to herself. Ravi guessed she wanted to return home, but her ship was broken. He thought of the people in town. If he brought her there, they might panic. Some might try to harm her out of fear. He could not let that happen. Ravi's mind filled with questions. Who was she? Why had she come here? Was she lost, or had something gone wrong during her journey? He had no answers. All he knew was that she needed help, and he was the only one there to give it. The alien grandmother gave him a small smile, weak but full of trust. In that moment, Ravi felt something stir inside him. It was not fear anymore. It was a sense of duty. He had saved her life, at least for now. What came next he did not know, but he was ready to face it. The night grew colder, and Ravi pulled off his jacket to cover her shoulders. She closed her eyes and rested. The silver craft behind them flickered with broken lights. Ravi sat beside her, keeping watch. He knew this was only the beginning of a strange journey. Ravi stayed awake under the stars, sitting close to the old alien. She looked peaceful now, wrapped in his jacket, but he knew she was weak and far from safe. He kept listening for strange sounds, half expecting someone to appear, but the field was empty except for the broken silver craft. As dawn approached, the sky turned pale and birds began to sing. Ravi thought carefully. He could not stay here in the open. If someone from the town found the alien, there would be questions, fear, and perhaps danger. He needed a hidden place where she could rest. Ravi gently touched her shoulder to wake her. Her large glowing eyes opened slowly. She looked at him with a tired but trusting gaze. He pointed to the path leading away from the field. "We must move," he said softly. Knowing she did not understand his words but could feel his intent, she gave a small nod and he helped her to stand. Step by step they left the field. The old alien leaned on him, her grip light but steady. Ravi guided her toward the edge of the forest that grew not far from his home. Few people went there, and inside the trees there was an old shed he sometimes used as shelter during storms. He decided that would be their safe place. The walk was slow. Ravi felt her weight press against him, but he did not complain. Her breathing was heavy, yet she kept moving. At one point she stopped and raised her hand to the rising sun. Her eyes softened as if she had not seen such a sight in years. Ravi noticed tears forming in her eyes, though they glowed like tiny drops of light instead of water. He realized she was more than just a visitor from space. She was someone with feelings, memories, and perhaps even a family far away. By the time they reached the shed, Ravi's arms ached, but he was glad to see the old wooden structure still standing. It was small, with a roof of rusty metal and walls of cracked boards, but it offered shade and cover. He opened the creaky door and let her inside. Dust floated in the air, and a few broken tools lay scattered on the ground. He cleared a space with his hands and helped her sit down on a blanket he found folded in the corner. The alien grandmother sat quietly, her large eyes watching him. Then she touched her chest with one hand and spoke a word. It sounded like Mira. Ravi guessed it was her name. He repeated it softly. "Mira." She gave a weak smile, nodding. Encouraged, Ravi pointed at himself. "Ravi." She tilted her head and repeated, though her voice cracked. "Ravi." Hearing her speak his name filled him with strange joy. It felt like the beginning of a silent bond between them. They could not share a full language, but names were enough to show trust. Ravi looked at her wounds. Her robe was torn, and her skin had strange marks that looked like burns. He fetched water from a nearby stream and returned with a damp cloth. When he touched her arm with it, she flinched but did not pull away. Slowly, he cleaned the marks. Her breathing eased a little, and she whispered that same word again. "Gentle." "Yes," Ravi replied softly. "Gentle." Hours passed. Ravi shared some bread he carried in his bag. She accepted a piece, though she ate slowly, almost as if she was not used to such food. Still, she smiled after tasting it. He laughed quietly, realizing he had just shared breakfast with an alien grandmother hiding inside an old shed. As the day warmed, Ravi knew he had to think ahead. Her craft in the field was broken and dangerous. If someone from town found it, they might call officials. If officials came, Mira would be taken away, and he did not know what they would do with her. He had to keep her hidden until she was strong enough to decide what to do next. Later in the afternoon, Mira tried to speak again. Her words were strange, flowing like music. Ravi could not understand, but she pointed at the sky and then at her chest. She made a gesture of circling her hand over her heart. Ravi guessed she was telling him she belonged far away, maybe in the stars. He nodded to show he understood. She reached out and touched his face gently as if thanking him. Ravi felt warmth in her touch, not only on his skin but deep inside. It was as if she carried a light that could be shared. He realized he was no longer just helping a stranger. He was part of something far greater, a story that crossed worlds. That night, as the sky grew dark again, Ravi sat outside the shed, listening to the wind in the trees. Inside, Mira rested, her glowing eyes closed in sleep. Ravi knew the days ahead would not be simple. But he also knew he had made a promise to himself. He would protect her, be gentle with her, and see her safe. The adventure had only just begun. The forest around the shed was quiet the next morning. Dew covered the leaves and sunlight slipped through the branches. Ravi stepped outside to gather water from the stream while Mira rested inside. He carried a small tin cup and thought about how unusual his life had become in only 2 days. He had saved an alien grandmother, given her food, and hidden her in an old shed. When he returned, he found Mira sitting up. She looked stronger, though her robe was still torn. She gave him a faint smile as he handed her the water. After drinking, she raised her hand to the air and traced patterns with her fingers. Glowing lines appeared in the air for a moment, like light drawings, then faded. Ravi stared in wonder. She had powers he could not explain. She pointed at the shapes she had drawn, then at herself. The symbols reminded Ravi of stars. He guessed she was trying to tell him about her home or her people. He wished he could understand better. Suddenly, a sharp noise broke the moment. A low hum filled the sky. Ravi ran outside and looked up. Far above the forest, lights moved. They were not airplanes from the nearby city. These lights shifted in strange patterns, glowing blue and red. His heart raced. Could it be more of her kind? Or was it something else? Mira stepped out of the shed and looked at the lights too. Her eyes widened. She placed a trembling hand on Ravi's arm. He saw fear in her face. Whoever those lights belonged to, they were not her friends. The lights hovered for a moment, then moved toward the distant fields. Ravi realized they might discover Mira's broken craft. If they found it, they could track her. He had to think quickly. "We need to stay hidden," Ravi said firmly, though she could not understand his words. He gestured for her to go back inside the shed. Mira hesitated but obeyed. Ravi closed the door gently and sat outside, watching the sky until the lights disappeared beyond the hills. His mind was full of questions. Were these other aliens searching for her? If they were enemies, why? She was old and weak, not someone who looked like a threat. But then he remembered the damage on her ship and the burns on her skin. Maybe she had escaped from them. Later that day, Ravi decided he needed supplies. Mira could not recover on water and bread alone. She needed real food and perhaps something to help with her wounds. But going into town would be risky. If anyone noticed him buying too much, they might become curious. Still, he had no choice. He left Mira with a blanket and gestured for her to stay quiet. She touched his hand before he left, as if asking him to be careful. Her glowing eyes followed him until he disappeared into the trees. In town, Ravi acted normal. He bought rice, lentils, fruit, and some bandages from the small medical shop. He kept his head low, not wanting attention. A friend saw him and waved, asking why he bought so much food. Ravi laughed it off, saying his uncle was visiting. Inside, though, he felt the weight of his secret. When he returned to the shed, Mira's face lit up. She clapped her hands softly, a gesture of joy. Ravi cooked rice over a small fire outside, mixing it with fruit pieces. She tasted it carefully, then nodded with a smile. Her strength returned little by little. That night, the sky glowed again with strange lights. This time they were closer. Mira stood at the door of the shed, trembling. She pointed to the stars and shook her head. Ravi understood. These were not her family. These were hunters. The thought made his chest tighten. Why would anyone hunt an old grandmother? But then he realized something important. Maybe she carried knowledge or a treasure they wanted. Maybe her gentle appearance hid something powerful. Mira sat down, closed her eyes, and began to hum softly. A soft glow spread around her, lighting the shed from within. Ravi watched in silence, feeling calm. It was as if she was protecting both of them with her strange energy. Still, he knew the danger was growing. The lights in the sky would not stop until they found her. And he was the only human standing between them and Mira. He promised himself he would not fail. The next morning he woke early and looked at her sleeping peacefully. She looked fragile, yet he felt she was carrying secrets older than his entire world. He whispered to himself, "Be gentle with her. Always." He did not know that soon the hunters in the sky would come closer, and his simple life would change forever. The forest felt different the next day. The usual songs of the birds were broken by silence now and then, as if even the animals sensed something strange in the air. Ravi carried firewood to the shed, his thoughts heavy. He could not forget the lights in the sky. Mira had shown clear fear when she saw them. Whoever they were close, and they were searching. Inside the shed, Mira sat quietly, her hands folded. She seemed stronger than before, but her eyes still carried worry. When Ravi entered, she raised her hand and drew another pattern in the air, glowing symbols that faded slowly. He tried to guess their meaning. She pointed to herself, then to the symbols, and then to the sky. Ravi thought she was telling him about her people, perhaps warning him that enemies had followed her. Ravi wished he could understand her fully. Still, he listened to every sound, every gesture, trying to learn. When she touched her chest and whispered Mira again, he repeated her name with care. Then she placed her hand gently on his shoulder and said, "Ravi." Their bond grew stronger with each small step. By afternoon, dark clouds gathered above. Ravi stepped outside, and that was when he saw it. A strange mark burned into the soil near the forest's edge, a circle of black ash. It had not been there before. His heart raced. Someone or something had landed nearby. He ran back to the shed and gestured to Mira to stay quiet. She read the fear on his face and nodded. Ravi grabbed a stick, the only weapon he had, though he knew it would not be enough against whoever had made that mark. Still, he could not sit and do nothing. As night fell, the forest filled with faint humming sounds, not the hum of insects, but a low vibration that seemed to come from machines. Ravi crouched behind a tree and saw faint red lights moving between the trunks. They were not lanterns or flashlights. They moved too smoothly, too perfectly. His breath caught when he saw figures. Tall shapes walked slowly, their bodies shining with metallic armor. Their heads were covered with smooth helmets and their arms carried long devices that looked like weapons. These were the hunters Mira feared. They were not from Earth. Ravi froze, hoping the darkness would hide him. The hunters passed nearby, scanning the ground with beams of light. One of them stopped and touched a small device on its arm. A glowing screen appeared in the air, showing the shape of Mira's broken craft. They were tracking it. Ravi realized they were moving closer to the shed. He hurried back, careful not to make noise. Mira sat waiting, her eyes wide. Ravi whispered, though he knew she did not understand. "They are here." She seemed to sense his meaning anyway. She reached out and pressed her glowing hand against his chest. He felt calm for a moment, as if courage flowed into him. Ravi quickly gathered the food, water, and blanket. He gestured to Mira that they must leave the shed. She nodded slowly, her movements quiet. Together they slipped into the deeper forest, moving away from the approaching hunters. The night was dark, the ground wet from light rain, but Ravi guided her carefully. They walked for hours, stopping only when Mira grew too weak. Finally, they reached a cave hidden behind thick bushes. Ravi helped her inside and lit a small fire. She lay down, exhausted but safe for the moment. As the fire crackled, Mira lifted her hand and drew another glowing pattern in the air. This time it looked like a star surrounded by circles. She pointed at Ravi, then at the star. He did not understand fully, but he felt she was saying he was part of something bigger now, maybe even connected to her people. Ravi looked at her fragile form, wrapped in the blanket, and whispered, "I will protect you." His words carried a promise, even if she could not follow each one. Outside, far away, the hunters scanned the forest, their glowing eyes searching. The night was filled with danger, but inside the cave a small flame of hope burned. Ravi knew he was only one human with no great power, but he also knew something the hunters did not. He had chosen to be gentle, to care for someone who needed him, and that choice gave him strength greater than any weapon. The hunt was not over, and soon their paths would cross. But Ravi was ready. The cave gave them shelter, but Ravi knew it could not keep them safe for long. The hunters would not stop searching. He woke early and checked the forest outside. The air was cold and mist hung low between the trees. There were no sounds of the hunters, but he felt they were still close. Inside the cave, Mira sat with her hands on her knees, humming softly. The sound was gentle like a lullaby, and the small fire flickered brighter as if answering her voice. Ravi watched with amazement. He realized she was not only an old traveler. She carried something powerful inside her, something beyond his understanding. When Mira finished humming, she looked at him with calm eyes. She placed one hand on her chest, then on his. Slowly, she drew a small circle of light in the air between them. The circle floated for a moment before fading. Ravi felt warmth spread through him, as if strength had been placed in his body. He touched his chest in surprise. "What was that?" he whispered. Mira only smiled, as if she had shared a secret gift. Later, Ravi prepared food. He boiled rice with stream water and offered it to her. She ate slowly, nodding in thanks. Afterward, she traced more glowing symbols in the air. This time she pointed to herself, then to the hunters far away, then back to Ravi. He understood a little. She was telling him that the hunters were after her because of what she carried inside her. Ravi sat silently, thinking. If she had something valuable, it explained why they wanted her. But he could not see her as an object to be hunted. To him, she was just Mira, an old grandmother from the stars who needed kindness. As night fell again, Ravi heard the humming sound return. The hunters were sweeping the forest once more. He put out the fire quickly and pressed his finger to his lips, telling Mira to stay silent. Together they crouched in the dark. The sound grew louder, then faded. Ravi let out a slow breath. When it was safe again, Mira reached into her torn robe and pulled out a small crystal, glowing faintly blue. She held it out for Ravi to see. It looked ordinary at first, but when he leaned closer, he saw stars shining inside it like a tiny universe locked in glass. Ravi stared, his mouth open. Mira pointed at the crystal, then at herself, then at the sky. She was trying to explain. He guessed the crystal was the treasure, the reason the hunters were chasing her. It was not gold or jewels. It was something far greater. She placed the crystal in his hand. The moment he touched it, he felt a rush of images in his mind. Distant galaxies, strange worlds, and bright suns. He gasped and almost dropped it. Mira quickly closed his hand around it, her eyes serious. "No," Ravi said quickly, shaking his head. "I can't take this." But she pushed his hand back toward his chest and whispered one clear word. "Keep." Ravi froze. She was giving him the crystal, trusting him with it. He did not know why, but he felt the weight of the responsibility. If the hunters found it, they might destroy worlds to gain its power. Now it was in his pocket, and he was the guardian. Mira leaned back, exhausted after giving him the gift. Ravi covered her with the blanket and sat by her side. His heart was full of questions. Why him? Why a simple young man from a small town? Yet deep inside, he felt he had been chosen for a reason. Outside the cave, the night stretched on. The hunters would not rest, and he knew they would return. But now Ravi had more than just fear. He had Mira's trust, and he carried her secret gift. He clenched his fist around the crystal and whispered a promise to himself. "I will not let them take her. I will not let them take this." The fire had burned out, but inside his chest, a new fire of courage had been lit. The hunters might be strong, but he would not back down. The cave kept them hidden through the night, but Ravi knew it was only a matter of time before the hunters found them. The crystal in his pocket felt heavy, not because of its size, but because of the meaning it carried. Mira had trusted him with something greater than he understood. When the sun rose, Ravi helped Mira walk to the stream to drink fresh water. She seemed weaker now, as if giving him the crystal had taken part of her strength. Still, she smiled gently when he held her arm and guided her carefully over the rocks. She whispered his name again, Ravi, in a soft voice that carried both gratitude and hope. On their way back to the cave, Ravi stopped suddenly. He heard the hum again, closer this time. Through the trees, flashes of red light moved steadily. His chest tightened. The hunters had tracked them. "Mira, we must hurry," he whispered. He guided her quickly back to the cave, but the sound of heavy steps followed. The hunters were moving fast. Ravi picked up the stick he had used before, though it felt useless against armored beings with strange weapons. Still, he could not simply stand aside. He placed Mira behind him, her back against the cave wall, and waited. Moments later, a tall figure stepped into view. Its helmet gleamed in the light, and a glowing weapon was raised in its hand. Behind it, more hunters appeared, their red lights cutting through the shadows. Ravi's heart pounded. There was no place left to run. The first hunter raised its weapon. Ravi gripped the stick tightly, ready to defend Mira even if it meant facing something far beyond his strength. But before the hunter could fire, Mira raised her trembling hands. A soft glow spread from her palms, filling the cave with light. The hunters stopped, their weapons humming but unmoving. Mira's voice rose in that same gentle hum Ravi had heard before. It echoed like music flowing through the stone walls. The hunters staggered. Their red lights flickered as if her song weakened them. Ravi watched in awe, realizing she was using her power to protect them. But he also saw the pain in her face. Every note seemed to drain her strength. "No, Mira," Ravi whispered. "You'll hurt yourself." But she kept going, her eyes fixed on the hunters. The glow grew brighter, forcing them to step back. Finally, one of them raised a hand to its helmet, pressing a device. A sharp wave of sound blasted through the cave, cutting through Mira's song. She cried out and fell to her knees, the glow fading. Ravi rushed to her side, holding her steady. Anger flared in his chest. He looked at the hunters who were moving forward again. He pulled the crystal from his pocket without thinking. It shone brightly in his hand, flooding the cave with blue light. The hunters froze. Their helmets turned toward the crystal. Ravi felt its energy surge through him. His fear vanished, replaced by a strange courage. He held the crystal high, and the light grew so bright the hunters staggered backward, shielding themselves. With a shout, Ravi swung his stick, though the true power came not from wood, but from the crystal's glow. The blue light shot outward like a wave, striking the hunters and sending them stumbling into the forest. Their weapons flickered, their armor sparking. Silence followed. The hunters retreated, their red lights fading into the trees. Ravi lowered the crystal, his chest rising and falling quickly. He had never felt such power before, and yet he knew it was not his alone. It was Mira's gift. He turned to her. She was weak, her hands trembling, but she gave him a faint smile. "Gentle," she whispered, reminding him of her only request. Ravi knelt beside her. "Yes, gentle," he said, his voice steady. He placed the crystal back into his pocket and covered her with the blanket again. For the first time, he believed they had a chance. He was not just hiding anymore. He was standing against the hunters, and he had shown them he would not give Mira up. But deep inside, Ravi knew this was only the beginning. The hunters had seen the crystal in his hand. They would return, and next time they would come with greater force. Still, as he sat beside Mira in the quiet cave, Ravi made another promise in his heart. He would fight for her, no matter what came next. The morning after their first encounter with the hunters, Ravi could not sleep. Mira rested quietly, her breathing calm, but he stayed outside the cave, listening to the forest. Every rustle of leaves or distant sound made him tense. He knew the hunters would return, and this time he had to be ready. He walked to the stream, thinking about the crystal. Its power was incredible, yet he did not fully understand it. Mira had given it to him, trusting him to protect it. He realized that keeping her safe meant more than hiding. They needed a plan, a way to move beyond the forest and out of danger. When he returned, Mira was awake. Her eyes glowed faintly, and she raised her hand toward the sky. Ravi followed her gesture and noticed faint lights far above the horizon. She pointed to them, then at herself, then back at Ravi. He understood she wanted to leave Earth to go home, but her ship was still broken. Ravi smiled. "We'll find a way," he said softly. She nodded, a small but hopeful gesture. Over the next few days, Ravi collected materials from the forest and the town without drawing attention. He made simple tools, repaired parts of Mira's craft as best he could, and carried food and water to the cave. Each night he sat beside her, telling her stories of his life on Earth. Though she could not fully understand, she listened, her glowing eyes following him. One evening, as the sun set, Mira placed her hand on the crystal again. The small globe of light floated between them, showing swirling patterns of stars. Ravi saw something move in the patterns, a shape resembling a bridge of light connecting planets. He realized she was showing him a route home, a path beyond Earth. Ravi's heart raced. If they could reach that path, they could escape the hunters for good. He looked at Mira, who gave him an encouraging smile. Though she was still weak, her energy seemed to return slightly when they spoke together. The next night, the hunters returned. Ravi had anticipated this and was ready. He held the crystal in his hand. Its glow lit the cave bright enough to chase away the shadows. The hunters stepped into the clearing, their weapons raised, but Ravi was calm. Mira joined him, lifting her hands. Her hum filled the air once again. This time, Ravi could feel the energy connecting him and Mira. When the hunters raised their weapons, Ravi held the crystal higher. The light flowed outward, stronger than before, forming a protective shield around them. The hunters tried to push forward, but the light forced them back. They shouted through strange devices, but Ravi ignored them. He focused on the crystal and Mira's energy. Slowly, the hunters retreated into the forest, their red lights fading into the distance. When the danger passed, Mira touched Ravi's arm and whispered, "Thank you." Her voice was faint but filled with warmth. He smiled. "We protect each other," he said. After the hunters left, Ravi and Mira prepared for their journey. Using the patterns Mira drew with the crystal, he mapped the safest route through the forest. They packed what they could carry and waited for nightfall. The forest was quiet now, almost as if it was helping them. Under the stars, they moved carefully, following Mira's directions. The path led them to a hilltop where the horizon opened to a wide, empty sky. Mira pointed at the stars above and then at her chest. Ravi understood. The crystal was showing the way home. He took a deep breath and held her hand. Mira smiled, her glowing eyes full of trust. Together, they approached the spot where her craft had fallen. The repairs they had made seemed enough. The craft's surface shimmered as Mira placed her hands on it. The air around them buzzed with energy. The crystal glowed brighter than ever. Ravi felt the same warmth spread through him, filling him with courage and hope. Mira whispered again, gentle, reminding him of the promise they had made to each other. Ravi nodded. Always gentle, he said. He watched as Mira entered the craft, her small figure illuminated by the crystal's glow. Then with a soft hum, the craft lifted from the ground. Stars above seemed to shine brighter, guiding them forward. Ravi stood on the hilltop watching her rise into the sky. He could feel the weight of responsibility leaving him. Replaced by a sense of wonder, Mira's home was far away, but he had helped her reach it. The journey was not over, but for the first time, Ravi felt the thrill of a mission completed and a life changed forever. Ravi stood on the hilltop, watching Mira's craft rise slowly into the sky. The crystal in his hand pulsed with a soft blue light, as if thanking him for keeping it safe. He had never imagined that saving a small, fragile grandmother from a broken spaceship could lead to something so extraordinary. The night sky was filled with stars, brighter than he had ever seen. Mira's ship hovered for a moment, then a beam of soft light extended down toward him. He shielded his eyes, unsure what to expect. The light felt warm, not harsh, and he realized it was an invitation. A gentle voice echoed in his mind. Ravi, you have been brave, kind, and gentle. You have protected me and my gift. Now it is time for your reward. Ravi's heart raced. He had expected thanks, maybe a simple farewell, but not a reward. He stepped closer to the light. Mira's image appeared inside it, smiling warmly. She raised her hand, and suddenly the crystal in his hand lifted and floated in front of him. The glow grew stronger and the air shimmered around him. You will come with me, Mira said. Not as a passenger, but as a friend. The knowledge you will see is beyond your world. You will learn, explore, and help others. Are you ready? Ravi blinked. The world he had known seemed small now. His town, his forest, even the sky above. It all felt tiny compared to the universe opening before him. But the courage inside him, the promise he had made to Mira, pushed him forward. Yes, he whispered. I am ready. The light surrounded him completely, lifting him gently from the ground. He felt no fear, only wonder. The crystal pulsed, and Mira's voice guided him. Trust the path. Be gentle with all you meet. That is your strength. Moments later, Ravi found himself inside the ship. It was larger than it appeared outside, filled with soft glowing panels and corridors that shimmered like starlight. Mira sat nearby, smiling. Welcome, she said simply. Ravi could hardly speak. The air smelled fresh, and the walls reflected the stars outside. He realized he could see parts of distant galaxies through the panels, planets and moons spinning in silent harmony. Mira gestured for him to follow, showing him the heart of the ship. At the center, a large map floated in the air. It was not just a map of space, but of possibilities. Places where help was needed, worlds at risk, and lives that could be saved. Mira handed him the crystal again. This will guide you. Your heart will decide how to use it. Ravi held it carefully, remembering the promise he had made in the cave. He understood now that the reward was not gold or jewels, but something far greater: knowledge, trust, and the chance to make a difference across the universe. As the ship began to move, soaring beyond Earth, Ravi felt a mixture of excitement and awe. Mira sat beside him, her glowing eyes bright with encouragement. You have proven that even one person can protect and change what is precious, she said. Ravi nodded, feeling a deep warmth. The world he had known seemed like a memory now, but he carried it with him in his heart. He had learned that bravery was not about strength, but about kindness and gentleness, and that even a small action could ripple across galaxies. Hours passed as the ship traveled. Stars stretched into trails of light outside the windows, and Ravi learned to read the floating symbols the crystal projected. Each symbol was a lesson, each glow a story waiting to be understood. Mira guided him patiently, showing him the wonders of her people, the beauty of distant worlds, and the importance of every life he encountered. Finally, Mira turned to him. This is your journey now, she said. The universe is wide, and you are its guardian in your own way. Never forget to be gentle, Ravi smiled. I won't, he promised. The ship glided silently through the starlit sky, carrying him farther than he had ever imagined. He looked at the crystal in his hands and then at Mira, feeling a joy that could not be measured. The reward had been more than he could have dreamed. Friendship, trust, knowledge, and the chance to see the universe itself. As Earth disappeared behind him, A new world of adventure opened. Ravi knew that this was only the beginning, and that the choices he made from now on would touch lives across stars. But one thing was certain: he would always be gentle. And he would never forget the old alien grandmother who had trusted him and changed his life forever. The universe awaited, and Ravi stepped forward with courage, wonder, and a heart ready to protect what mattered most.